Mr. Zeldin of New York.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if one of the gentlemen who said this isn't a ransom and that we owed the money would be interested in answering this question. Says who? For decades, this was a disputed claim. I know why, and I also know about our counterclaims. So when did we first admit that this money was owed and that they didn't owe us anything?
Well, I don't think we've ever said that they don't owe us anything, and there have been work that we've done on whether hostages, on whether the hostages taken at the embassy have the right to sue the Iranian government.
What do the Iranians
But there's
owe us?
no dispute that $400 million of the Shah's money was sitting under American control since the 1970s. And in fact, most of the calculations I've seen would indicate that we've paying less interest that could have been earned in other investments. So I know to go from 400 million to 1.1 billion sounds like a
reclaiming
lot,
my time.
The rate of return on that is rather low.
A few things there. So first off, we received money from the Iranians for a purchase that they canceled. So we were spending a lot of money to build pretty serious weapon systems that they canceled. Furthermore,
will the gentleman
let me just finish my point. It's my time.
I believe we canceled it.
Then in February of 1979, it was restructured, the debt that they were owed. Then they take our embassy, and 15 days after they take our embassy, the Iranians say that they do not owe any foreign obligations to anyone. Then for decades, we dispute this claim while having our own counterclaim. So they asked for $400 million. We're asking for $817 million in the counterclaim because they were supposed to protect the weapon systems that we had given them. In addition to that, there was $400 million of claims of United States citizens in U.S. courts against Iran, judgments against the Iranians that were subrogated as part of that $400 million. So we have a disputed claim for decades with regards to what Iran was asking for the United States, but at the same exact time, we're asking for $817 million because they failed to protect the weapon systems. They took our embassy. They said that they didn't owe any foreign obligations. They owe $400 million to the United States for claims of United States citizens. So we put everything on balance. It comes back to the question, why is the net that we owe them $400 million?
U.S. citizens, I believe, have collected $2.5 billion in settlements from Iran. I support efforts for more to be paid. And you can say that there was a tactical advantage in the various lawsuits and claims for us to continue to hold Iran's money. But this, if you look at this money in isolation, it's my understanding that we canceled the contract, and if we hadn't, we should, because the weapons that we had agreed to give the Shah should never have been in the hands of the supreme leader who took over afterwards.
Actually, the timeline is that the Iranians fell behind in their payments, and in February of 1979, the entire deal was restructured. But again, so the whole thing that caused this issue was the Iranians falling behind in their payments. But again, you have $400 million sitting in an account to pay claims. You have $400 million sitting in an account. The Iranians have claims against the United States. The United States has claims against Iran. Both sides are disputing it. I'm asking you, so what happened with our $817 million claim against the Iranians?
I believe that is still pending, and whether it's Iran or any other sovereign, the State Department uniformly opposes the suits against sovereign, and that is it. If we look at this issue by itself,
but we
first,
can't.
if we didn't,
we can't look at it. The money
well, if you're
was
going to say
there.
that you can never settle anything until you sell
the $400
everything.
million that was sitting in that account was not there for one claim. That $400 million was not sitting in that account to settle one claim. It was to pay claims in front of the tribunal. So yes, the Iranians had claims against the United States, but also the United States had claims against the Iranians. Part of that had to do with subrogated claims of hundreds of millions of dollars, 400 million actually, that the Iranians owed the United States. I yield back the balance of my time, but it's
unless the
important
gentleman
that we
will
can't
yield
take it in isolation.